Hey, welcome to the Fantasy Football Forge. The people asked, hey, where's the waiver wire show? You did that last year. I did it for part of last year. It is easier to do than videos. And I found out last week doing the waiver wire on videos that are released after Tuesday. Not a great route to go. What's up, Quincy Jones? How you doing? So if you're watching this, yeah, we're gonna go through the waiver wire, answer any questions. I don't know how busy it will or will not be. I'm just gonna kind of look at a few different articles, give some opinions on some of the players, what I agree with, disagree with, what I'd be concerned about, or what the advantages might be of certain guys, etc. So, I know some ads might be going. So we'll let people get on in here. Actually, let me pop this open. Why does it do that? There we go. I think. Hold up. What the heck's going on? Okay. The streams are working. So we got a poll going right now. Who's your number one overall waiver wire? The four choices that I have are Juwan Johnson, Alec Engelmanner, Troy Franklin, and Woody Marks. There are some names that could have made this list that didn't make the list. So always, feel free to write in your votes in the chat or in the comments. I think this video should end up going up after we're done. So far, Juwan Johnson in the lead. I mean, it's tough to argue against that. Especially with, some tight end needs for some people who either had George Kittle or Mark Andrews or the Chicago guy. I had two of them. All right, for the quarterbacks, this list here has got Daniel Jones at the top of it, has a very low roster percentage. One thing I will say to suggest that to be careful about Daniel Jones and how real this is that he had like was it 97, 87, an extremely high percentage of first read targets, which just means that basically the play calling is working really well, and Daniel Jones is listening to what the coaches are telling him to do, and he's getting the ball out and is getting to them. But, somebody else who's rather high up on that list historically, like Tua Tagovailoa, these are guys who can be had if the first read gets taken away, if they're not very good from that point on of, going down to their second, third read, adapting, etc. So there is some concern. I mean, that's good in a sense that he's playing within the system for as long as the system works. As soon as defenses catch up to it, things break down, we might see good old Daniel Jones that we have seen in the past struggle. But there's also definitely many arguments to be happy about him. Damo, Origato, would you rather have Marvin Harrison Jr., Rome, or Keenan Allen? Wow. I think Rome is the highest up on that list for me right now if I were to go rest of season. He's everything that, we thought he might be, but of course didn't know if he would be at this point. It seems real. It's not fake targets. Like they're getting him open specifically, calling plays, moving him around to get the ball into his hands. And he was the number 9 overall pick, I think, 2 years ago. It seems very real to me. I mean, I almost want Keenan Allen over MHJ, to be perfectly honest. But definitely Rome. Don't want to write off MHJ if I can avoid writing him off. But yeah, there's some work there, or some concern there. CC, what's up? Hello, Forge. With Jaden Daniels injury news, who would you pick up? Bryce Young, Daniel Jones, or Aaron Rodgers? So, I do have my quarterback rankings done here. This week, and I'm low on Daniel Jones. A lot of people have him higher. I think Tennessee's defense has played pretty well, and I'm not fully bought in on DJ. But when you're comparing him to Bryce Young, I'm definitely not fully bought in on that. And Atlanta's defense has been spectacular, especially against the pass and against the run. And I got Aaron Rodgers right behind that. I do like the matchup for Aaron Rodgers. I don't love it, but I'm going to buy in on Daniel Jones for the week. Tennessee doesn't necessarily scare me. Vegas doesn't think it scares them too much. But I think man, I might have to move Aaron Rodgers ahead of Bryce Young. I'm going to do that right now. I think it's between those two. And I got Daniel Jones a tier ahead. It's going to be Daniel Jones. I don't feel very comfortable with it. That's the route that I would go. That's also what Fantasy Pros is going to say there. They got Daniel Jones at the top of this list. No Aaron Rodgers on their list. Bryce Young, I would assume his ownership would suggest he could be on this list. He's not on the list either. DJ at the top. Yeah, I would go with DJ there, CC. Thanks for stopping in, as always, CC. It's beautiful to see you. Look at the people coming in. The Smitty. I thought for a second that was a different Smitty who does fantasy football. I was going to say, what up, Smitty? Kels, what's up, Kelsey? 22. Daniel Jones is the I don't know why I added 22 after that, after I just said your name. We knew which Kelsey this was. Daniel Jones is the number 2 fantasy quarterback right now. He is right now. I just lost Burrow and Fields in the same week. Yeah, it doesn't seem like Fields is probably going to play based on the coach's comment that he's got to practice Wednesday and Thursday, and concussions almost never get cleared prior to like Thursday at the earliest, and usually not until like Saturday at the early, for the most part the earliest, if they get cleared in time for week 1 of football, for the next week after the concussion happened. The Smitty, I'm 0-2 in a 2-quarterback league. Daniels, Q, Purdy. Out backups are Ward and Rattler, running backs. Okay, so Daniels and Purdy, obviously, injuries. Sounds like you have Ward and Rattler both as well. Running backs are Henderson, Montgomery, Brian Robinson Jr., and James Conner. Okay. Ugh. See, this is why we draft more than 4 running backs. But and JCM. Okay. Browning and Mac Jones are on the waiver wire. Who would you prioritize? What order? So I'm not seeing. Oh wait. 2-quarterback league. I think you have to prioritize Browning. Purdy. So Mac Jones could replace Purdy. Once Purdy's back, then Mac Jones is replaced. Who do I have ranked higher this week? Mac Jones, Browning. I feel like I have Mac Jones ranked higher. I do like Browning, but yeah, I'm like not shy on Mac Jones this week. Where the heck are you, Mac? How high do I freaking have him? Oh, there we go. Arizona lost 3 cornerbacks last week. I don't know that any of them are coming back. They're 3 starters. So I like Mac Jones. I thought he did very well. It's a good system fit. He's a system type of quarterback. I think it's a good fit. I think it's a very nice fit. Juwan Jennings' ankle injury is not going to be helpful. That's for sure. I do trust Jake Browning. Minnesota has some injuries. I just want to look at their upcoming schedules. I want to look at Mac Jones, just see if there's anything that scares me about Mac Jones' upcoming schedule. Next 3 games, Jacksonville, Rams, Tampa Bay. Overall, pretty good. Stays good after. Well, I don't know that Atlanta's a good matchup anymore. But this is about the time that Brock Purdy's coming back anyways. You were going to have to deal with them. And maybe Atlanta's not that good. Yeah. I think I would go with Mac Jones personally, myself. So Mac Jones, JCM, Browning is probably how I would order those 3, Smitty. Daniel's questionable. Yeah, Daniel's questionable. It sounds truly questionable. Nino Pena, Ramondre, and the running back Maradona. Yeah, I caught up to you. 1 second, and I'll catch up the rest of that, Smitty. Nino Pena, Ramondre or Franklin, number one priority, full PPR. And I struggled not to say Ramondre, but I don't want to overreact to that either. What's the vote at here? Troy Franklin, Alec, and Juwan Johnson. It depends what your running back and wide receiver rooms look like, I think. But you looking, which one would you prioritize? Man, Ramondre shouldn't be available. I lean Ramondre, and I fear in 3 weeks that could be completely wrong. I ended up pulling the trigger, by the way. Sent Tyreek Hill and ETN for Chase Brown and Jacoby. I just hated the crazy risk of having Reek. And then, of course, Chase Brown's stock goes down. But yeah, I mean, it's still fine. Yeah, I like that trade. I didn't remember that exactly, but I assume I told you that I like the Chase Brown-Jacoby side more. Risk of having Reek with CMC. Thoughts on Hampton? It hasn't been great. I'm not overly concerned with how he's played. I am concerned about him next week. I do think there's a decent chance that he will be sat for like the first half because of that fumble or something. It'll be nice if he isn't. That's definitely a narrative that I don't want to put too far into my rankings. He hasn't been efficient. It hasn't been great. Might have played 2 good run defenses. Las Vegas run defense might actually be good. They definitely sometimes leave some holes. But, I mean, for 2 weeks, they've been good. So, there's a possibility, too, that that's playing a part of this. Overall, I'm not, fully concerned about Hampton. It is what it is. He's a rookie. It's 2 games. These things happen, even to pros. I mean, he did pretty much just as well as Derrick Henry. I think technically better in fantasy football, right? So, these things happen. The Smitty, Daniel's question. Okay, I was thinking Browning because Purdy will be back soon. And I want Browning as a trade asset. Okay, yeah, that's a good thought. That is a good thought, Smitty. That way it is a 2 quarterback league, having the 3, as 2 quarterbacks, anybody can get injured at any point. And it is close enough between the 2, Browning and Mac Jones. I don't feel significantly stronger about Mac Jones rest of the season, even this week, despite the difference in the rankings. So, yeah, I like it. I like the thought process there of diversifying that quarterback profile in a 2 quarterback league a little bit. That's a good point. Should I drop Mac Jones for Browning? Well, I just said that I would probably actually take Mac Jones ahead of Browning by a little bit. If you're looking for full season, at least regular season for fantasy football, I'd probably go Browning. Troy Franklin was drafted to the Broncos due to his chemistry with Bo Nix. In college. Don't sleep. Yes, they were teammates, and definitely thought Troy Franklin was a better wide receiver than a 5th-round wide receiver in that draft. There were some issues with this game, but some things to be really excited about. And that's why I like Troy Franklin more than Marvin Mims this year. And last week, he was a love of mine, and I went to fill up a spot on a deep league of mine, and it was between him and freaking Cade Otton. And guess which one I added onto that roster, and now I might not get Troy Franklin. But I'll probably be putting a waiver wire in for him. How do we feel about Cortland Sutton? Really no different. I mean, a little less confident. In some ways, it's good that they have more receiving options, though, too. Yeah, I mean, I was pretty bold on him. There's a chance I would put him behind a few people, but I mean, people that I had him ahead of that were surprises. I think MHJ is someone where I had him ahead of Marvin Harrison Jr., whereas the crowd didn't. I mean, I would personally still rather have Cortland Sutton than Marvin Harrison Jr. So, I'm cool with it. It's fine. I'm not freaking out about it yet. Are we buying Jake Ferguson 12 targets, tight end 1? As a tight end 1, you mean? Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take a whole lot to be a tight end 1 when it comes to outside of the top 4, 5 at the most. So I'm fine with it. Metro, what's up? Top 12 tight end. Let's see. We got Trey McBride, Brock Bowers, Tucker Kraft, Tyler Warren. Sam Laporta I would still put ahead of him. He's probably in the same bag a little. I would still probably prefer him to Juwan Johnson by a little bit season long, just for the touchdown upside. I mean, yeah, definitely. This week, I'm a little bit thinking that it's going to be a lot wide receivers getting targets, so I think it might go back down, to another like 6-target game, which is fine for a tight end. But I mean, yeah, it's you take Mark Andrews seems to be out of that conversation at all. Evan Ingram seems to be out of that conversation completely. Hunter Henry seems like maybe he's just back to being Hunter Henry. TJ Hawkinson, obviously, tough to say he's a better pick than Jake Ferguson rest of season. That clearly brings us into top 12 type of territory, probably top 10 type of territory. I think I would rather have him than Zach Ertz. Kelsey, probably not, but in that same tier, so yeah. I think he's good. You got Wandale on the wire. Don't think I'll land him, but is it worth going for him or Daniel Jones for trade value? Quarterbacks are tough to trade, usually, especially, well, at least for single quarterback leagues. So if it's single quarterback, I wouldn't really expect. I don't know that what Daniel Jones has done so far this season is going. I know what Daniel Jones has done so far this season will not be rest of season. I don't think he's a top 2, 1 quarterback rest of season. I don't think you could get much for Wandale. I don't know. I mean, what do you? I don't think there's much trade value to be had. I already have Lamar, so I wouldn't need him for anything other than trade fodder. I mean, who are you planning on dropping to pick these people up, I think is my question. Okay, so waiver wire, I would have Trevor Lawrence ahead of DJ, Matt Stafford on the waiver wire. They're going to throw a lot. Michael Penix, I think I would still rather prefer than Daniel Jones, actually. But that's, close enough. Penix hasn't looked dominating. I think Geno Smith is at the very least in this same tier as these guys. This is why quarterbacks don't have trade value. I mean, almost all these guys are available in most leagues, or at least 3-4 of them are in a lot of leagues. Single quarterback types of leagues. Sam Darnold could have a good week here. Mac Jones obviously has a period of time where he'll be good. So I mean, yeah. I have Mac Jones ranked higher than Daniel Jones. If I'm going waiver wire, I rank rest of season waiver wire Trevor Lawrence at the top here, and then I struggle to make a clear distinction after that. Let's move on to the running backs there. All right. I don't have to drop JJ's out for weeks. Okay. I would probably rather take the chance on Wandale because for the most part in one quarterback leagues, once you need a quarterback, usually you can probably find something. It can go bad. I've had it go bad, and it sucks when it goes bad. It sucks when your quarterbacks don't work out. But there were quarterbacks available every week. I was just making the wrong decisions, and it sucked. It did suck. But I just don't know that Daniel Jones is the answer. He might be. It's looked good. There's reasons to say that it might not last, though. Andre, I have too many Hampton shares. It's killing me. You're killing me, Smalls. Rookie running back, 2 games, possibly faced against 2 good rushing defenses. It's killing you so far. I don't think it's going to kill you all season. I think he's very talented. I think it'll be okay. But, if you want to sell a couple of your shares, nothing wrong with that. I thought of including him in a trade offer today, but I couldn't quite pull the trigger on it. I drafted running backs so freaking well. I have way too many running backs on my 2 main roster teams. I don't know about my listener league if I have too many running backs there, but that team's struggling. Jordan Love or Trevor Lawrence rest of season. I would go Jordan Love. not in a terms of there are games where I would prefer Trevor Lawrence. Weeks where I would prefer Trevor Lawrence just based on game flow expectations. Like Trevor Lawrence is going to have a higher ceiling in games because he's probably going to have to pass more because he's definitely got a worse defense than the Green Bay Packers. But in terms of like consistently trusting them, I just think that Jordan Love's a better quarterback. And I think he's got better play calling and is in a system that he's familiar with and is very efficient. So I would go Jordan Love over Trevor Lawrence. It's a nice pairing to have if you can have both of them, which I think I have a league with both of them, actually. Yeah, my league mate is panicking on Hampton right now, so might consider buying. Yeah, if you can get him for cheap, get him. I am concerned about him this upcoming week. I'm sitting him for Jordan Mason. Also, I'm on Scattaboo, but I already have a lot of running backs, so should I just grab him anyway with the open slot? Running backs get injured typically. Been pretty good health-wise so far this season, but nothing wrong with having another one on your roster, I would say, generally speaking. Scattaboo probably shouldn't be available. I don't know how big that league is. Kind of depends on league size. But, over those other guys that you mentioned, I would rather Scattaboo over Wandale and the quarterback. Kelsey, Mason or Genty? I've got Genty ranked over Mason this week. I want to be higher on Mason, but that Vikings offensive line is really, really banged up. So I'm just concerned about how well he'll do behind that offensive line against... Who are they playing? And I think Vegas might be too. 25th. Yeah, Vegas isn't like extremely excited. It is against Cincinnati, so it's one of those things where it's if that Minnesota offensive line was strong, I mean he would be probably ahead of Ashton Genty, maybe ahead of Breece Hall. He would be in this Kyron Williams, Chuba Hubbard tier, I would say. If I could get him up that high. But I'm just really afraid of that Minnesota O-line there. So, unfortunately, I gotta say Genty. Confidence level on that? That offensive line for Las Vegas sucks too. But I think it's at least whole for the most part. It has a better chance of coming together in any given week. And I don't... Washington's run defense isn't really his strongest point. Quincy Jones. What up, Quincy? Welcome back in. Thank you for stopping back in earlier. Start Jordan Mason over Pollard. See, You could. I got Jordan Mason in the same tier. I have him in must-start territory. Like, I want to play Jordan Mason. You know what I mean? Over Pollard, Hampton. Okay, I'm playing him over Hampton myself, and I have him ranked over Hampton. ETN, I couldn't do that right now. Also, what do you think about Jordan Mason rest of season? Is he worth a stash? Well, he's worth a play right now. He's available in my league. He should not be available, Quincy Jones, but he is. So, hell yeah. Get him. Use him. For the most part, probably use him. Like, probably in a... If you can't get him in at your running backs, maybe quite possibly in as your flex. Yeah, he's really good. I assume that's a smaller league, Quincy. Maybe you're one of the 8 leaguers that I have in here. Can't quite remember at the moment if you're one of the 8 team leaguers. But yeah, Mason's good. I like him over Hampton this week. My receivers have not been great. Oh, wait. Metro, my receivers have been great. 3 wide receiver, PPR. You got Nico, McMillan, Waddle, Judy, and Hollywood. Well, I think Judy, Hollywood, Waddle, you can't necessarily rely on. Nico's been kind of poor, but he's going to be much better. McMillan. But do I, Wandale would possibly be a decent replacement for Hollywood when the time comes, but I don't know that Wandale's any better than just fishing through the waiver wire on a weekend for somebody else once Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy are back. You know what I mean? And I don't know that Wandale's any better than Judy. Frank Nunez, what's crack-lacking, brother? How you doing, Frank? Would you stick with Fields or pick up... I would go Dak. Well, I would go I would go Dak, then Love, priority-wise. I would not necessarily stick with Fields, especially considering I would rather just drop Fields and pick up. Like, I'm comfortable just having Dak as my guy and playing him, and in a really bad week, I wouldn't mind having Dak and Love. That's a good combo to have, but also single quarterback league, you definitely don't need to carry 2 quarterbacks. So I would probably just drop Fields, go for Dak. That's what I would do. I think Dak just offers you a little bit more upside than Love. Love a little bit more trustworthy, maybe. I don't know necessarily that you need to. I would go Dak. But it's pretty close between the two, so if you like Love more, go there. I wouldn't go Mac Jones over either of those two. And would I drop Fields straight up for Jones? I think I would hold on to Fields and wait till he's actually ruled out, and then pick up a quarterback off the waiver, off the free agent quarterback at that point. Put Fields into my IR if I have an IR spot, Frank. That's what I would prefer to do otherwise if I don't get Dak or Love. Metro, my running backs are Henry, JCM, KW3, and Charbonnet. Pacheco and Judkins. Nice. Yeah, that looks a little bit close to several of my running back rooms. Quincy Jones. Is Quentin Johnson better to stash an 8-man PPR over full PPR? I don't think so. I think teams will adjust to the deep threat of Quentin Johnson, and it'll be a little bit harder to make that happen as they figure it out. I don't like relying on touchdowns. I think Olave, especially because it is full PPR, is trustworthy enough as a floor. And personally, when we're talking about my wide receiver 4, somebody that I'm going to be using hopefully sparingly throughout the season, or because of a really good matchup and a bad matchup for one of my normal starters, I like the floor in that position for the most part, normally. I would still have Olave ranked over Quentin Johnson the rest of the season. I'm 0-2 right now, though. That's okay. Lost week 1. Last play of Monday Night Football due to the last play putting them 6 yards over. Ugh. It's okay. Bad starts happen. 2-2. League managers scoring. Patrick. League median scoring. Was offered CD and RJ Harvey for Chase Brown, Charbonnet, Tet. Thoughts? 12-team full PPR, which helps Tet. You would get CD and Harvey. And Harvey might not be good for a long time. I don't think I could do it. What are your... Okay, one flex running backs. You got Brown, you got Gibbs, Charbonnet, you got Warren, you got Scadaboo. Okay, wait. And you got Tootin. You know what? Like, by the time that maybe if Warren's ever unusable later on in the season, you got Tootin that could come on. You got RJ Harvey that could come on. You're going to still be able to play. I assume you only need to technically play 2 running backs. So you're always going to be able to play Gibbs, play Charbonnet, Warren, Tootin, or RJ Harvey you'll have to choose from for now. Your wide receivers are Brian Thomas, Sutton, Tet, Egbuka, Coleman. You could have CD, Sutton, Egbuka, Coleman, BTJ. Is there any chance? Tet's not better than BTJ. I want to say, is there any chance you could do BTJ instead of Tet? Nah, we don't want to do that. Guys, what would you do? I think I would accept that trade for CD Lamb. I think CD's definitely better than Tet. Charbonnet's kind of a question mark. Chase Brown's, I don't think better than CD either. The combination of them kind of better, but because of you drafted pretty well, Patrick, I think that's the type of trade where you're condensing your roster a little bit. It's pretty early in the season to do that. There's some risk with that, of course. You're going to make yourself a little bit more susceptible to injury, but I do think you have enough guys between Scatterboo, Tootin, RJ Harvey that if injuries hit the most injury-prone position, your running backs, you might be able to recover from it. Might have guys waiting for it already at that point in time. Patrick, I think I would accept it and double cross everything in my body that I could cross that it works out. Kelsey, 22, JMO or Jordan Mason in your flex, half PPR. Guys, let's try to keep these more to like trades and waiver wire stuff. By the way, let me get this waiver wire. Here's some running back waivers. Let's see if I agree with that. John Bow. Hello, John Bow. How are you doing? JMO or Jordan Mason, half PPR, half PPR. I'd probably go with Jordan Mason, I assume. I haven't done my flex rankings, Kelsey, yet, but that's where I think I would lean. John Bow, 1124. Why do I always say the numbers? Nobody needs the numbers. Day's is going well. Tuesdays are always packed full. What's your difference is JSN and Nico Collins so far? What's my difference in them? Because I'm thinking of trading JSN, Debo, and Juwan Jennings for Nico, Rasheed, and Jalen Warren. So obviously you're trying to maybe upgrade the running back room a little bit. You get rid of JSN, Debo, and Juwan for Nico, Rasheed, and Jalen Warren. If you can hold on to Rasheed, I would generally say I would do that. Man, John Bow. It's definitely one of those trades where it's like, you know, it feels like maybe the JSN, Debo, Juwan Jennings, by pure numbers and what's happened so far in the season, is like the definite winner. But it's not the definite winner. And it seems like, you know, Kansas City needs Rasheed Rice. I think Rasheed Rice gives you more upside than Debo for sure. Jalen Warren, if you need a little bit of help at your running back position, is at least probably just as valuable as Juwan Jennings. And Juwan Jennings just came up with another injury, an ankle injury now. And I would still put Nico Collins ahead of JSN rest of season. There's a little bit of risk there. Might not be the case. I think I would accept it. I tried trading for Nico Collins myself. It wasn't like the best trade offer. My running backs are Gibbs, Chubb, Harvey, Judkins. Well, Judkins, Chubb, Gibbs. I mean, I don't think you need to add Jalen Warren into that room, though. What are your wide receivers? What are your wide receivers, John Bow? How are we feeling about shooting a trade offer giving Judy and Pacheco for Hampton? I don't think that'll get accepted. Go right ahead. I don't think that'll get accepted. Metro, I'd try doing that immediately if you can get Hampton. Yeah, exactly. Pick 2. Adams, Malik Igbuka, Malik Adams. Sorry, my bad. Kelsey, don't feel bad. You're always here. You're good. You're good. I have JSN, Evans, Debo, and Pickens and Jennings. Okay, so you would be getting rid of Debo, Jennings. You got Pickens and Mike Evans. Ooh. Oh, JSN. My bad. JSN, Evans, Pickens, Debo, Jennings. I mean, I kind of like your roster as is. John Bow, I mean, I like the roster. You know, Jalen Warren's probably better than Chubb, who is, well, I don't think after this week Chubb's going to be your running back 3. I think Judkins will be able to be your starting running back after this week. I would probably hold off on playing him this week. Yeah, I mean, you're at a little bit of a need for running back. Nico Collins, I said I would probably still have him ahead of... Okay, guys, also help John Bow out. I think... Yes. You're going to need... Okay, so you're going to go down to... Get rid of those 3. So you're only going to have Nico. What are your wide receivers room going to be? It's going to be Nico. Where the heck are the wide receivers? Why can't I find your wide receivers anymore? Okay. Evans, Pickens. For a while. You're going to be down to 3 wide receivers 4 weeks ago, 2 weeks of bye weeks. I would just I would quick do a little bit of homework on there. 2 wide receiver, 1 flex, 3 wide receivers. So you're probably good, right? I would do a little bit of homework on the bye weeks for um, Evans. Make sure there's no crossover between Evans, Pickens, and Nico. Make sure you can get through that, because otherwise you might be finding yourself having to drop a running back that you don't want to drop in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks. So just make sure that you're going to be able to make it through that. If an injury happens, an injury's going to happen, and then that really sucks, and that'll put you in a spin cycle too. So I really like your depth a little bit better right now. Long term, I do think that that provides you a little bit of upside, and short term, Jalen Warren could be very fruitful for you and help you get an earlier victory, like this week maybe. And Kittle's going to be coming back. That's nice. Yeah, generally speaking, I like your roster. I don't think you need to do it, but just look at those bye weeks before making a final decision. I kind of like the trade a little bit. Would you trade Henderson for Quentin Johnston? No. Generally speaking, Smitty, I would not do that. I would rather have Henderson still. He was supposed to be, apparently, by some local reporting, supposed to be in line for more of a workload. And then it's a really, really easy running back matchup. Ramondre kills it, so that helps keep him off the field. Also, Henderson does get on the field, often enough early on, but then he gets 3 holding penalties in pass pro, which generally he should be a good pass protector. So might have just, I don't want to hold that against him too much going forward, and I doubt the team does either. Drafted, 34th overall or something. I mean, they clearly want him to be the guy. I think it might have been a bit of a benching situation combined with Rashad, combined with, just an easy matchup, the starting running back doing good. Why can't I think of his name? Stevenson. So, no, I wouldn't. I don't want to rely on Quentin Johnston's not going to have 24 touchdowns on the season, which I think is what he would be pacing for right now, right? That's not going to happen. So there will be regression on those touchdowns. No crossover on the bye. Jumbo, I'm like 55% on board of making that trade. How are we doing here with the vote? So Juwan Johnson's leading as the number 1 overall waiver wire right now at 50% of the vote. Got Alec Ironman, Troy Franklin at 25% each, and Woody Marks at 0. So for the running backs, speaking of them, Fantasy Pros has Tyler Algier at the top. Yeah, if Tyler Algier is available in your leagues, definitely. I don't know where they pull their roster percentages from. I'm sure that's fairly accurate in some areas. So Tyler Algier should not be available. He is a guy who you can actually use in a extreme pinch, and he can come out for you. He's gotten usage throughout the entirety of Bijan Robinson being there. So he shouldn't be available. Kyle Manan, guys, nice. Jeremy, I don't really want to touch these other Washington running backs. I don't have much faith in either of them being good enough in fantasy. Jeremy McNichols is going to pick up some of the passing workload, and I expect he will not rush as much as Austin Eckler was rushing, and that JCM will pick that up, and then there will be a little bit of a spell back from Chris Rodriguez for JCM. Don't really expect that to be a split. So I expect 3 running backs, but in a normal way, where JCM's getting the majority of the work by a decent margin. He's just not proven as a receiver yet, and last week he didn't get his head turned around for his quarterback on one of his targets at least. And so that wasn't, promising for his receiving work going forward. Tyjae Spears is definitely somebody you could hold on to your roster. I don't mind that. And Woody Marks is not a horrible stash in a deeper league, but I'm not trying to go crazy for that. Gainwell is somebody you could play. He gets enough, he's kind of like a Algier, but he hasn't produced as well as Algier so far this season. And I don't think he's as good as Algier. But I would probably put Gainwell maybe 3rd. I think I would go Algier. Maybe Manan guy 2, Tyjae Spears 3, Ken Gainwell 4, and then the Washington guys. Then maybe Woody Marks is a desperate, because I do think his upside is still greater than either Rodriguez or McNichols, and then the Washington guys would be my final 2 there. Let's see. Vex Deem, full PPR. Should I trade away Josh Jacobs for Nico and Jacobs for Nico Collins and Quinshaw Judkins? I would say yes. And full PPR doesn't help Josh Jacobs. Yes, Vex Dream. That's a trade I don't think you could deny. Quinshawn Judkins is obviously he's not going to be as good as Josh Jacobs. But Nico Collins is probably better than Josh Jacobs, and Quinshawn Judkins is going to be, worst case scenario, a running back 2. And Josh Jacobs is a middling RB1. A consistent one at that, a good one. But I think Judkins should be consistent enough too. Because even if Judkins gets suspended for some time, which is possible, I don't really think it's likely, but I don't think it's like far-fetched by all means. Nico's, I think, still probably would still draft him over Josh Jacobs, maybe depending on who I took in the first round. Yeah, I mean, the offensive line there in Houston's really bad. They were really bad last year too, and Nico still was excellent. So I think there are better days ahead for Nico. Steven Jackson. Is this famous running back, Steven Jackson? I traded away A.J. Brown and Chase Brown for Roman Dobbins. Bold. I mean, I don't agree with it, but I hope it works out for you. I understand, obviously. I have both A.J. Brown and Chase Brown, so I totally get the situation. And I have Roma Dunze, and we know how good so far that Dobbins has. And you have R.J. Harvey, so, like, I guess if that if that changeover happens at any point, you got the running back there for the Browns, which is a good running back to have. We've seen that. I do think R.J. Harvey has probably overproduced so far. I know A.J. Brown has underproduced so far, and Chase Brown's top end has come down, but I would still prefer Chase Brown to Dobbins, and I would still prefer A.J. Brown to Roma Dunze. But there's no guarantee that that's going to be correct. So I wish you the best of luck with that. I hope that works out for you. Man, see, this is why sometimes I throw offers out there, even though I never get these trades. And I don't send too many of them out there, but sometimes I send offers out there for guys, buy low types of situations. Would you start Tay or Rome? I think it's Rome this week. I think I'm a little bit low on Tavante and definitely higher on, I think I originally might have, and then I flipped them. They're in this group, like, my wide receiver video will come out tomorrow evening, but like this group right here, I could flip on its head and be fine with it, have it ranked exact opposite. Devontae Adams ranked 14th, Cortland Sutton ranked 22nd, and I wouldn't complain about that at all, So that group I think is very flexible, so it's very close. There's a reason you're asking that question. I'm going to go with Roma Dunze. We got the higher implied point total for him. He has been better on the season. They both have gotten about the same amount of targets, and I do think, a much better defensive situation for Chicago to be scoring points. That's why their implied point total is higher than up against Philadelphia for the Rams. And I do think that the most likely scenario is that Quinyon Mitchell, the best cornerback for Philadelphia, pretty much a shutdown corner. Still young in his career, can't call him that for sure, but is, I think, probably going to cover Devontae Adams the most. So I would go Roma Dunze on that one. Frank, how did I end up with Jets and Browns on my team? That wasn't the plan. Fields, Hall, and Judkins, Sampson, Fannin. Yeah, bro, I got Sampson, Fannin, and Judkins too for multiple reasons among my few rosters that I have. I hear you. I did completely avoid the Jets, though. Why would you do that, says Q. It's a risky trade. In my opinion, Rome is the best player in that deal. I'm done with the game. Eagles offense just runs through Saquon week in and week out. But they did that last year too, and A.J. Brown was still a stud last year as well. It would just be my only kickback on that. Metro, what's up? I'm back. Welcome back. Had to finish a research paper. Attaboy. We chillin' now, though. Welcome back, Metro, as always. Chase Brown is running behind a bottom 3 offensive line with a backup quarterback, a really good backup quarterback. Burrow is done for the fantasy season. Yes, he is, and so I'll take the sure thing with Dobbins. He countered the trade asking for Nico to give me Hampton and Swift. Right, exactly. I mean, Metro, it wasn't a good trade, right? You're the one with the Judy and Pacheco for Hampton? Yeah. It was Judy and Pacheco for Hampton. He's asked for Nico for Hampton and Swift. Yeah. He's trying to take advantage of your want of Hampton there. You offered him Judy and Pacheco. I mean, I get that you're trying to... I get what you're saying, but Nico's technically a buy low, too. He hasn't done very well so far in the season, just like you were trying to buy low on Hampton. You can't get mad at him. You can't say, oh, that's a dirt... It's not. I mean, Hampton and Swift is not bad. If you were crap at running back and you absolutely needed running backs, that's something you might think about doing. So you can't be mad about it. You can't be mad at him. Y'all are thinking Alec Ioman are better than Troy Franklin. So here we are with the wide receivers. And I think Troy Franklin over Ioman. I think I liked Troy Franklin a little bit better as a prospect coming out. Although Ioman did go higher. The NFL thought more of Ioman than Troy Franklin. And Ioman's had a really good start, and he's only a rookie. So there could definitely be plenty of room to grow. To me, obviously there's a lack of some touchdown upside. Although, a really rough start for Tennessee through those first 2 weeks for a rookie quarterback. So things should get better from this point on out. But to me, I think he's kind of like a Josh Palmer-esque guy where I just think there's a consistency, a nice consistent floor that you could get from him. I just don't think that there's that, that touchdown upside, definitely not there. Whereas Troy Franklin has some explosiveness, at least to give you those big games like you gave you this week. I don't think Alec Iomanner really has that in him. So that's my reasoning. And then, you do have, as somebody else pointed out, the college connection between Bo and Troy now maybe showing itself. If by the end of the season, if Troy Franklin's the wide receiver 1 in Denver, Cortland Sutton's hit his age gate, I don't think we could be completely shocked by that happening. Troy Franklin in his second year, he's had some time to season himself into the league. Personally, I would rather Troy Franklin to Alec Iomanner. I think it's a better offense. I liked the prospect a little bit more. And I think there's more explosiveness, which when we're talking about a wide receiver 4 or 5, well, earlier I said I'd rather the floor. It depends. Once you get to a certain point, I don't care for the floor. And Alec Iomanner, I think he has a floor that I don't really care for, but who knows? Might find out. Might be fine. And I wouldn't be opposed to, having him on my roster over some people, that's for sure. Cedric Tillman, I think I would still rather than Iomanner by a little ways. I would probably rank these Troy Franklin, Cedric Tillman, Alec Iomanner. I think I would still rather Kayshon Boutte over Wan'Dale Robinson, but I would actually Romeo Doubs higher than Kayshon Boutte, I would probably put Romeo Doubs above Iomanner, so Franklin, Tillman, Romeo, Iomanner, Kayshon, Wan'Dale, Palmer's fine to have. I'll take the chance on Alec Iomanner being technically better than Palmer, but I think Palmer has much more touchdown upside, and I think the target totals maybe not be too much higher for Alec Iomanner, but higher. And I would also take a chance in the short term, if you're just looking for some short term help, on Dontavian Wicks over Wan'Dale Robinson. Probably over Kayshon Boutte, but that's a little bit of a short-term, long-term question there. And I don't feel like I need to touch Marvin Mims or Adam Thielen at the bottom of that list for the wide receivers. All right. Let's see. What are my valuing Hampton at? Still just... I mean, right now, rest of season, greater than Jordan Mason. I still like him more than Javonte Williams. So, and like, I think I would put him in the Ken Walker-ish range. There's definitely some threat to him being a running back too, but I think he'll be a running back too, I think is how I feel about Ken Walker. So that's probably about how I feel on him. He hasn't quite proven himself yet, so at this point I'd probably take Ken Walker over him. So, I think I would still take all these other guys ahead of him. ETN, rest of season, I would say ETN and him are roughly equal as well. So around 14, 15, 16, around where we were drafting them still. Just a little bit disappointing so far, but rest of season hasn't moved too much. Would have liked to see a stronger start, of course. Forge, are you more panicked on Chase? T. Higgins. I think T. Higgins is probably the one that gets crapped out the most out of this. I have him on a team of mine. Of course, the two teams who have been most affected by injuries, I have the most stock in, being Cincinnati and the Niners. There's like no other team that I have multiple players at. Well, Cleveland. But, yeah, those are the two offenses I drafted high on, top 4 rounds, multiple picks, and a quarterback. But that ended up being okay with the quarterback. I got Dak Prescott somehow, anyways, who I was actually going to draft over him. So I think T. Higgins is the most traditional guy. They can get targets. I think the targets will still be there for Ja'Marr Chase. Just the touchdowns are down and the targets aren't as oftenly explosive, but they allow. He's not dead in the water. None of them are dead in the water. They allow Jake Browning to play the Joe Burrow offense. They still allow him to take deep shots. They don't condense it down. A massive example of this would be Green Bay Packers last year when Jordan Love goes out. It's a completely different offense when it's Will, I want to call him Will Levis, when it's Will, the backup quarterback who was in Tennessee with Will Levis for a short while there. Will, whatever. He's like a rushing running back, doesn't really have a great explosive arm, not the best thrower. They went to a totally different offense, and the throws were all within, a lot of times I would say 8 yards of the line of scrimmage at most, for the most part. A lot of lateral stuff, stretching the field laterally instead of stretching it vertically. They don't do that with Jake Browning. They trust Jake Browning, and they trusted him 2 years ago, for the most part, when he played for Joe Burrow, and he did really well then, and he's had more time to sit and season, and he was, I think, in his second year, or even a rookie at that point. So, I'm pretty confident in Jake Browning being still serviceable for everybody. But T. Higgins is my biggest, we removed the touchdowns now, we removed some of those explosives, and I think he's the hardest one to get the ball to for a quarterback, just because, he's just, the throws to T. Higgins have to be a little bit more accurate than they do. He's not in open spaces so often, like Ja'Marr Chase is. So, I'm the most panicked for T. Higgins. Apparently, 2 years ago, his expected fantasy points, T. Higgins, was actually still really high with Jake Browning. So after hearing that stat, I have a little bit of confidence for T. Higgins, but I won't be surprised if he becomes a, low-end wide receiver 2 / high-end flex kind of guy. Even flex wouldn't be totally shocked. So are we higher on Franklin than Wandale? I am personally, Metro. Steven Jack, I know you said you think Browning is good. I think he lowers the... Well, no shit. No offense. But we're talking about Joe Burrow. Obviously, he lowers the ceiling of the offense. He's a clear backup quarterback in the NFL, but he's also one of the best, if not even the best, just because of the system, backup quarterback in the NFL, just because of how much he's familiar with that system, I'm saying, compared to maybe some guys who are technically better backups, but just like Mac Jones is able to pick it up there in San Francisco, it seems, pretty fairly. Yeah, obviously the ceiling, they're not going to score 54 passing touchdowns or whatever it was that Joe Burrow had last year. That's not going to be how many touchdowns that he's going to throw for. Or, he's not going to throw for the same amount of average touchdowns per game as Joe Burrow did last season. And we weren't drafting Chase Brown to be a floor guy, in my opinion. No, we were drafting him I was especially drafting him extremely high, but he's still going to get like 20 touches a game. I mean, he's still okay. He's just, shit happens. We have to deal with the injuries. You can't do anything about it, but I think you had the trade, so you're saying you traded around Chase Brown, but I just don't think that, I mean, J.K. Dobbins is pretty much a floor guy, so I don't think that I wouldn't put J.K. Dobbins higher than Chase Brown the rest of the season, and J.K. Dobbins might lose his job to R.J. Harvey more as the season goes along. Already last week, J.K. Dobbins only had 46% of the snap share. He's not even getting half of the snap share, whereas Chase Brown's getting like 90-something% of the snap share. I just don't think it's a good trade. But like I said, I get how it happens. You obviously liked Chase Brown. You're just concerned about him now. It happens, and rightfully so. He's not going to be the same guy. There's no doubt about that. Jay Hacks, trade for Drake May or pick up Williams or Jones off of waivers, had Burrow. Drake May, all day. Yeah, I like, not going to go with Mac Jones over these two. I'm going to go Drake May. I think Drake May's better season long. I had him ranked higher season long before the season. He's looked better than Williams so far throughout the season. I don't know that he's been better in fantasy at this point. And I think that I have, this week, I believe I have Caleb Williams. One spot. I'm very much looking into flipping these two. But, okay, so I have them as equal. They've both been good. I think Drake May is the better quarterback currently at this point in their careers. It's really close, man. It's really close, but I watch Drake May play, and I see a lot of things that I like. I watch Caleb Williams play, and I see a lot of things that I don't like. They both make boneheaded plays, plenty, and they both do some things really, really well. And for fantasy, they both have rushing touchdown upside, which is absolutely fantastic. I go Drake May myself. It's by a thin margin. It is by a thin margin. What would you guys do? Caleb Williams, Drake May, or Mac Jones to replace Joe Burrow? Miriam Kim, what's up, Miriam? How are you doing? Drop Dak for Goff. Other quarterback is Drake May. Nope. I would keep Dak. I love Goff this week. I have him extremely high, just shooting for that ceiling. But nope, I would stick with Dak. I think he's, generally speaking, going to be the guy to have rest of the season a little bit more than Goff. It's close enough, but I wouldn't. I might be cooked running back. I have Genty and Walker. I think you'll be all right. Genty's not losing that job to anybody, I'll tell you that. Metro, dang. I mean, you're not wrong, but wow, that caught me off guard. I want to trade so bad, but my league mates are stubborn as can be. I didn't mean to catch you off guard, Metro. I'm being harsh today. Miriam, drop Strange for Goddard? You have Ferguson? Yeah, I would probably rather Goddard than Strange. What is Goddard's injury anyways? Yeah, generally speaking, have I missed anything? Is Goddard expected to potentially be back this week? Let me know if you know. I'm overpaying for upside, and they still decline. What are you overpaying for? I don't know what you... You're saying they declined Nico for... You wanted to do that trade? You were going to get rid of Nico for Hampton and Swift? And they declined? I'm banking on Dobbins being more productive with his touches. He's already been extremely productive with his touches. And once they phase him out, I'll just plug in Harvey. And yes, you do have that going for you if they phase him out. There's no guarantee about that. He might just be the guy. And I think it's a good room to have the running back for. But, it is a three-headed monster right now. But, okay, so I'll show you. Go into the running back. So here's a list of the running back's opportunities. And as you can see, there's a definite correlation between opportunities and outcome, right? It makes sense. We know this, but here's a very visual. Here's the consistent fantasy scoring, average fantasy points per week. Adjusted for consistency, it's a point scoring system. So these aren't the actual average fantasy points per week. It's a scoring system, which it leans towards consistency by a little bit. When you go look at J.K. Dobbins, you will notice a little bit of a difference here. A little bit below average, a little bit below average in average opportunities per game here, in the slightly red coloration here. So he's in this group, starts to get into this group of guys who might not produce for you because of the amount of opportunities. It can get a little bit hairy. But you look at his average fantasy points, his fantasy points scored here, and it's one of the darker colors amongst everybody so far. Now, guys can go whole seasons bucking trends and being ultra productive. I mean, that's something that Alvin Kamara has done his whole career, so that definitely happens. But he is one of the bigger, if not the biggest, outside of maybe Jaylen Warren here. I put them both in this regression candidates in terms of maybe being a little too productive so far for what they should be producing. That's all, I would point out about him. James Conner might be the biggest, given how we still are ranking him, although he's actually performed worse than those guys and has, is it fewer? Whereas Jaylen Warren, fewer than Jaylen Warren opportunities, fewer than J.K. Dobbins. Yeah, so also a huge regression candidate in James Conner right now. Not somebody I would want to be paying high for. Unfortunately, Derrick Henry kind of actually fits so far. One game he crushes it for you. One game he probably loses it for you. Let's move on to the tight end waiver wires here as we get back to the questions. So, and Steven Jackson, I just want to make it clear. Obviously I'm going to say things more often than not. I want to say them with conviction because, that you have to say things with your chest. But I also do try to point out that I might be wrong, and I want to very much make it clear that, first of all, anything could happen. Chase Brown could go down next week, and then all of a sudden that's for sure a good trade, even if it wasn't technically a good trade anyways. Also, it could work out. There's no doubt about that. Along with everybody else, I'm not 100% on my takes. I say things, and I'm wrong about them sometimes. So I do just want to let you know. I'm not trying to dog you or anything. You make calls. You made a bold call. I got respect for that. You know that was a bold call. And I see the thought process into it. I just don't agree. Appreciate you, though. Standing on business. Exactly. Mir and Kim, May or Dak this week? How did I have it? I just got to keep these up here. I've got Dak one spot ahead of May. I would say that's only because of rushing upside. That is, and because he's done better on the season. But I'm not too concerned about that. Week 1 for Dak was just weird. He played a good game, just didn't work out for fantasy purposes. That happens sometimes. Week 2, though, he does get overtime to help boost the stats. Although, did he end up boosting the stats really much in overtime? It was more like George Pickens and stuff that got a little bit extra boost there. Because they ended up kicking a field goal. So he only boosted him a little bit. Game flow-wise, spread doesn't suggest anything different for either one of them. And implied point total a little bit higher here for Dak Prescott. So I would say Dak Prescott's probably a little bit safer. I think Dak Prescott, because of that rushing upside, just comes with a little bit more, I want to say equal floor here. Just because I'm not so ready to say that Pittsburgh's defense is bad yet. Pretty close to saying that, though. But Drake May might not be able to quite take advantage of the biggest weakness in Pittsburgh, their secondary. And Chicago's defense sure looks pretty bad so far as well. So I'm going to say, I think Dak has the lowest floor and the highest ceiling, but I think everything in between in terms of likelihood of scoring higher is Drake May. From 12 points to 22 points, 24. I think Drake May's, more likely to score more points than Dak Prescott within that range, which is the most likely range that they'll both land in. So I just like that portion of Drake May this week. If you want the highest ceiling, it is probably Dak Prescott. And if you want to avoid just a poop game because maybe they run a lot, a week 1 game type thing happens here against Chicago, I would avoid Dak Prescott and Drake May. So Drake May is just, he's the intermediate range guy. I gave Nico and JCM for Achane, and they said no. I also did that for Brees and Fields, which they declined. I would have a hard time trading away Achane myself. I don't think I would do that. It's not that it's a bad trade. It's just one of those things like Achane has been really good already. Nico hasn't. JCM's, an unknown JCM. I wouldn't accept it either. I don't think it's like a bad offer though. Pick 2, Miriam, JMO, Ridley, Diggs. JMO, Ridley. I still like the upside of Ridley more than Diggs. I knew I was overpaying for it too. Trade Dak or May and Genty or Walker for Ridley for Robinson to the guy who has Burrow. Wait, what? Okay, wait. Trade Dak or May, one of them, and Genty or Walker, one of them, and Ridley for Robinson. What Robinson? What Robinson am I not thinking of? All I can think of is Wandale. It's got to be a guy who's really obvious. Gotta be a running back. Bijan. Duh. Okay. So I think you want to put your best foot forward. I want to say, who do people feel? Who do people like more, Drake May or Dak Prescott? Dak's the bigger name. I'm gonna go. Maybe if you know the person, I would just text him like, "Hey, do you want Drake May or Dak Prescott? Which one do you want? Do you want Genty or Walker? Which one do you want?" So Miriam, if you know this person and you can text him, I would do that. I would just say, "Hey, I want to give you Ridley, either Genty or Walker, and either Drake May or Dak Prescott for Bijan Robinson. Is there any combination of, running back, quarterback, and wide receiver that you would accept for him?" I don't think this gets accepted. I would, if I'm offering it, I'm going to go Dak Prescott. I think has more name value still. I'm going to go with Walker because he's coming off the better week and he has name value, and people are freaked out about Genty right now. And then Ridley. I don't think it gets accepted, but if they're desperate for a quarterback, maybe it will. So that's probably what I would do if it's not a good relationship that you can text him. John Bowe, he declined the trade. Someone else gave me a formal offer for me getting Javonte Williams, and I give up Debo. Debo for Javonte? I think I would rather Javonte. I got concerns for both of them. It would just come down to my running back and wide receiver rooms. I don't know that I'm like dying to make that trade in either direction, but I would probably rather have Javonte generally. My running back room, to give you a perspective, is Bijan. Obviously, now there's 2 Denver guys, Mason, Braylon Allen, Trey Benson. Benson's nice. I lost last week because I played Kyler over Drake. Ugh. And I'm kicking myself for it. I think I had Drake ranked over Kyler. I certainly did, actually. Darn. Juwan Johnson or Ertz rest of the season? Juwan Johnson floor, Ertz Ceiling? Ertz with the touchdown upside. Uh, so generally speaking, touchdowns are the most important thing for a tight end in terms of giving you weeks where you could win. I'm going to go Ertz by a hair. But I think Juwan Johnson's like the one who I feel more comfortable about giving me, 8 points every week in half PPR. Full PPR, I would probably say Juwan Johnson. Half PPR, I'm going to say Ertz. I mean, I've got Ertz behind Juwan Johnson this week in a better matchup. So I feel like that tells me that I'm leaning Juwan. I'm actually going to flip those. I think, especially if Daniels is gimped, he's not going to be able to run as much. He's going to have to drop that ball off even more. Yeah, I'm going to lean into Ertz on that. Yeah. And this is exactly why. Like, this is what it's going to be all season, most likely, is New Orleans is never going to be implied for more than like 21 points. Like, the best of matchups, we're probably leaning towards that an average implied point total in the best of cases, most likely what we'll see all season. Zach Ertz and this Washington offense definitely have much more touchdown opportunity. So I would say Zach Ertz rest of season. Amir, I don't feel the strongest about it, but I would say Zach Ertz. And I hope I'm not wrong. All right, so for the tight ends, obviously I'll take Zach Ertz if he's available on your waiver wires. I will take Juwan Johnson over Harold Fannin on the waiver wire. I will agree with that. It's not by like a massive lot, though. I feel like I kind of like maybe Cleveland offense better. I don't know. I like Harold Fannin's role, but Juwan Johnson's got an even better role, and he's been better so far. By a little ways, at least. So those are the clear two. I'm not really... Isaiah Likely would be my third tight end, waiver wire tight end, if you have the ability to add him onto your roster. I would say we definitely might see him become the fantasy tight end to have for Baltimore this year, it would appear. So that's all quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers. I was just going to stick around for about an hour. Seems like conversations are dying down. So get any more questions in. I'm going to look through this PFF article and what they had for their waiver wires. I definitely don't agree with all of this. So they got Michael Penix at the top. I haven't totally bought into this Atlanta offense in terms of the passing attack, and nothing that's happened through the first 2 weeks have made me want to buy into it any more than I did to start the season. So I'm not really on board with that. I'm not totally on board, but I would rather a Jake Browning. I would definitely rather a Trevor Lawrence. I think I would rather him than Daniel Jones, who they have on this list. I would definitely rather all of them than Bryce Young. More offensive line issues, too, for Carolina. That's not going to help Bryce Young. He needs a good offensive line in front of him. For the running backs, they have Woody Marks listed at the top of this article. They take some risks. Whoever writes these week in and week out, sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. I can't really agree with that one, especially over Bashaw Tutin, who seemingly has a much more clear path. I think they're probably saying that they think that Nick Chubb is easier to overseat than ETN. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. And then the other thing to think about, too, with Bashaw Tutin is we just saw Liam Cohen, make the switch throughout the season last year with a late-round running back. So he's not afraid to kick somebody to the side even if they're doing well, or to split that workload pretty heavily. And he definitely likes to use the running backs a lot if he can. Ken Gainwell, pretty high up on the list. I would... Blake Corum, I do think, is a solid guy to have on your bench. Ken Gainwell, do I care to have the guy with the limited amount of touches, no real great receiving upside on the Pittsburgh Steelers offense? Probably not. I'd much rather take the risk that Kyron Williams goes down, in which case Blake Corum's going to be the guy, it seems, have him. Kyle Manan guy, definitely in a deeper league, benches, not a bad idea to have. Taj Brooks, I don't mind Taj Brooks as somebody, but I find it odd that he's in this article after the injury to Joe Burrow. And Kareem Hunt is useful on a week in and week out basis, as Pacheco is, in terms of you probably want him on your bench. Wide receivers, I got Troy Franklin at the top of the list. I do agree with that. Alec Ironmanner right behind that. I don't mind taking a chance on Alec Ironmanner. It could always pan out to be a very good waiver wire pick. Wan'Dale Robinson comes with the floor, full PPR guy. I would say generally he had a week last week that he normally doesn't have in terms of like ADOT. Dontavian Wicks, I definitely agree with. I think he's somebody that's not really getting talked about at all. I actually have him ranked ahead of Romeo Doubs this week. I don't really want to play any Green Bay wide receivers against Cleveland this week, but I do think he's a guy with like a little bit more guarantee. Like they moved Dontavian Wicks around, like they moved Jaden Reed around to get those targets. So I just think he's a little bit more reliable than Romeo Doubs. Target-wise. Kayshon Boutte, I still like enough. I don't want to write him off because he has one bad week. I mean, I'm not writing A.J. Brown off because he had 2 bad weeks. So, I don't want to write him off as a good guy to have. Keep him on your bench if you track him. Calvin Austin, I don't mind, but I don't need to have him. And, I think Jalen Coker, if you could get him in your IR spot, not a bad guy to make that happen with. And we went over the tight ends. I still don't mind Brenton Strange. I still wonder about Chig Okonkwo, but obviously there's the chance there. I'm not going to go crazy for A.J. Barner. Mason Taylor, I still think that there's an opportunity that he could be something at some point throughout the season. There's not a whole lot of competition there for targets, so and he's a receiving type of tight end compared to like A.J. Barner, who's not really. Tyler Conklin, okay. All right, I think that's enough articles there. Frank Nunez, what's up, brother? I'm gonna hope those Cleveland running backs go off. They ain't going off against Green Bay Packers. I have Sampson and Judkins on the bench, but we only have 5-man bench, so you're not going to be able to keep both. Hopefully, trade one. Man, so like Sampson, what could you get in a trade? Sampson for Ridley? If you got to get rid of... Wait, why can't you hold on to both of them, but you could trade one of them? A 2-for-1 trade, does it have to be? Rop. What's up, Rop? R-O-P? Someone dropped Tucker Kraft last week. Do you think 35% fab is okay? I'm going to say probably. I'm not like the best at these fab things. What's your... I want to give you a dollar amount instead of a percentage. What's your, like, base... is it $100 fab? What's your league fab? I want to just give you a dollar amount where I would feel probably comfortable with it. Because potential top 4 tight ends don't come around. Outside, upside. What's up? Who's your current tight end? I got Fannin in 1 league. I'm probably going to have Fannin in 2 leagues. I got George Kittle waiting to replace Fannin eventually. And then I got George Kittle in a league that I don't need tight ends. And that's a 14-team league. And I have a couple of other tight ends that I might not keep. Might replace them with other players. So right now it's going to be Harold Fannin until... George Kittle's healthy again. Yeah, Andrews ain't. You could drop him. Unfortunately, I mean he's gonna have some weeks, but he's not. You can't rely on him. We have 1,000 starting, and I have 907 left. Okay. See why you went percentage. So if this was 100 and you had 90 left, I don't really care about the left though. I want him. I want to win this. I mean, there's almost certainly not going to be a wide receiver that's going to come along that's going to be better. There could be a running back situation that comes along that you'll want money for. So it depends on how good you're running. Like, if you got a really deep running back room, I'm willing to take this even further, you know? Assuming it's not a 2-quarterback league, quarterback, you don't have to worry about too much if it's one quarterback. I would be willing to. How about 407? 40.7%. Leave yourself with half of your fab for the rest of the year. I mean, there's some risk here, but the upside of having him, especially compared to a Mark Andrews, it's so good. And maybe because there's been so many other tight ends and people have been banking on those, maybe they're not spending as much. But like 407, get yourself, that extra $7 there just in case somebody puts 400 or something like that. Or 401 even. Or 405, thinking that they're trying to outbid a 400 bid. 5-man bench is the worst. I don't disagree with you. Cash. What's up, Cash? What's up, man? First time playing fantasy. Welcome to fantasy football. 0-2 in a sleeper league. The sleeper app. I was thinking like best ball. According to rankings, I have the best possible players in their position. Even if getting someone off the waiver wire, any advice? These things happen. Bad starts, bad luck. Sometimes there's no fix other than waiting. Like, look, people have 2 bad weeks. The NFL is still, like, these first 2-3 weeks even are still like a preseason. I mean, things happen in these 2 weeks that will not happen again all season long. There are guys who have 3 touchdowns right now that might not get another touchdown all the season long. That might only get 2-3 more touchdowns for the rest of the season. There are teams that are 2-0 that might end the season. I don't know if there's actually this year any team that I think this about specifically, but there are years where teams will go 2-0, 3-1 to start the season, and they end up with 4 or 5 wins at the end of the year after, 10 plus more games despite that start. So, like, a lot of things happen, and the season is far from over, Cash. And so what you don't want to do is, the poker term tilt. You don't want to go on tilt and make a bad trade because you just want to change things up. You're giving up on guys that you shouldn't be giving up on. Studs are still studs for a reason. You don't sell a stud like an A.J. Brown, for the most part. Try not to sell him for, a wide receiver 2 and a running back 2 because you need help. Your wide receivers and your running backs haven't done well through the first few weeks. And then the rest of the season, they'll do pretty well, and now you've just got way too many wide receiver 2s and running back 2s. So just keep the faith, Cash. For the most part, if it's saying that you've got, the best players at their position, whatever, if it's saying that you've got good players, there's probably a reason for that. And they'll probably do better for you. So, keep the faith. I haven't had a strong start to the season. I'm definitely somewhat worried, but at the same time, it happens. I can hold both Cleveland running backs for a while, but they're both bench players, and when buys come up. Oh, yeah, I got you. Yeah, for now, just keep them both. Worry about that another day, right? That's my thought, but because running backs become valuable when injuries happen, so I don't want to go insane. Yeah, exactly, because there's a guy like I was just, talking about, like Corum, very well might not be on a roster. So if he becomes available due to an injury there for the Los Angeles Rams, that's going to be very valuable. People will put a lot of money up for it. That's where maybe you use the rest of that 500, and then you're just going $0 bids rest of the season if it's a Kyren Williams is out for the rest of the season type of injury at that point. Pouring Henny, thank you very much. It's got a cut 2 weeks ago, maybe just a week ago. I think it's 2 weeks. Thank you. I appreciate you. I'm 2-0 in the league, and tight end is my main weak spot. Nice start to the season, man. I'm jealous. Tyler, Ferguson or Ertz. Why do I always want to say Hurts for him? Fergie or Ertz rest of season? I would lean Fergie on that one. I got to spend a good amount of fab on one of them. I have Njoku. Well, I don't think Njoku's like totally spent. Like like, I don't know that I would just be. I wouldn't spend a whole lot of fab to replace Njoku with Ertz. I'll just say that. But I wouldn't spend a whole lot of fab on this. But I do like Ferguson a little more. I think for next week's rankings, but you're not asking next week's rankings. I think I have Ertz actually ahead of Ferguson, or did I just flip that? They're like back to back? Who knows what's going to happen? Yeah, so I am fading Jake Ferguson this week. I do think there is a chance that Dallas. There's only like 6 targets because Chicago's cornerbacks suck. Their secondary sucks, and so the ball goes out to the wide receivers a whole heck of a lot. And I don't think that I'm too afraid of the pass rush of Chicago against a not great Dallas offensive line necessarily because of an injury there. So, yeah, I'm not like the highest up on Jake Ferguson this week, but also he could have another good week. Same with Zach Ertz. See, every time I flip him, I want to flip it back the other way. Did I flip him, or did I just say I was thinking about flipping him? I don't know. I don't know anymore. Yeah, Rob saying Ferg. I think I go Ferg. It could go either way, and that's part of the reason why I'm not spending a crazy amount of fab. I think what I would do if I were you is put a lower fab bid on both of them and see which one you get. Make it so you can only get one, of course. I'm sure you can make that happen, right? Because just make it so you have to drop a player. Don't just put an open bid on them. If you can avoid it, at least. If you can work it like that. Looking to upgrade at running back. I have ETN, Javante, Swift, Monty, Chubb, Mixon. Why are we looking to upgrade? Well, Mixon. Who should I target in ETN and Monty? Because you want like an RB1, RB1. ETN Montgomery, Tyler. So you're looking to trade high on 2 running backs for 1 running back. Ooh. Would the Derrick Henry owner take that? I think what you have to do, Tyler, here is you have to find a team who did not do well in drafting running backs. Because there really haven't been too many injuries, right? Outside of, what's the injury? The Austin Eckler team, which, it's not like Austin Eckler was drafted incredibly highly. Or the Aaron Jones team, once again, not like he's drafted incredibly highly, but if they happen to have gone 0 running back and they didn't hit and they drafted Aaron Jones, they might be in trouble. And maybe they are a hero running back team, though, and they have Derrick Henry. So find the team who needs running back help and then target a guy who's worthy of those 2. So it is, what is it again? ETN Monty. Basically, running back 2 and a flex. Breece Hall, I think, is kind of where you have to settle for. Which I don't know. How much more do you want Breece Hall than ETN? I don't know. Ashton Genty would be somebody you could target if you have faith in that. That's obviously going to be taking a risk. Kyron Williams owners might be a little bit concerned with the Blake Corum stuff. Not a great matchup either this week, so they might be a little bit more willing to push him off. Chase Brown owners might be concerned. Chase Brown would be a guy. Just some names too. But generally, you got to find, like, you got to find the team that's starving and just hope that they accept it, or hope that they have one of these guys and they're concerned about him or something like that, is how I would do that. Yeah. That's how I'd work that. I feel the first couple of weeks is still preseason. First-time starters are playing coaches, still figuring it out. Yeah, I think I said that, right? I was meant to say essentially it's preseason still for them if I didn't actually say it when I was talking about that. Rob, now here's an interesting question for you. Ramondre is also on waivers, which is crazy. So I have the issue when we're considering going heavy into both, which depletes my fab. Don't you have a good running back room? I want to say you have a good running back room. So I wouldn't go crazy on Ramondre. He shouldn't be available, but that doesn't necessarily mean that your team needs him. Somebody else is making a mistake by leaving him out there. I would probably, if you do want him, but you don't need him, which I think is the situation that you're in, that you don't really need Ramondre. I wouldn't put a huge fab bid on him. Last week, it's a bit of a series of events that occur that lead to him having that massive week. I don't think that's going to prevent Travion Henderson from getting more work as the season goes along, and definitely more work than last week. And I don't think that he's going to look like that against every opponent. He might look pretty good this week again. That's possible. Going up against Pittsburgh, they've been pretty bad against the run. But, and Travion Henderson coming off that week, maybe they continue to hold him back a little bit. But it was more of a series of events than anything. I'm not going to go freaky on Ramondre Stevenson for fab reasons, Boring Henny, my first 2 weeks have started off pretty bad compared to my hopes beforehand. That's just fantasy football, right? Is Franklin going to surpass Sutton as wide receiver 1 in Denver? I would say probably not this year, but, it could be something where we think that next year. How about Tootin in Jacksonville? Will he eclipse ETN? It's very possible. I think he's going to get some work. I don't know if it'll be enough work. And we know that Liam Cohen is not afraid to give the opportunity to the incumbent over the guy who's already the starter there. That's what he did, last year with Bucky Irving. So it's tough to say. Like, I'm not the biggest Spatial Tootin guy in terms of how I valued him as a prospect coming into the league. So because of that, I'm a little hesitant to buy in totally, but he's looked really good. So there's definitely an opportunity. There. I would say Tootin is the higher likelihood to be the guy out of those two situations compared to Franklin. Nino, I know I asked Franklin or Ramondre earlier, but in 12-man, is it worth number 1 priority? Over who? Are you saying using your number 1 priority? Ramondre might be if you need help at running back. Because you can't pass up on him. Yeah, Ramondre's probably worth number 1 priority if he's available. Here we go. Wide receiver running back for him. I don't think Troy Franklin is. If you have the number 1 waiver wire, I wouldn't use it on Troy. CMC, Chase Brown. Okay, so you got good running backs. After you got Benson back up there too, and then you got Pacheco, Harvey, which we'll see on that. So I wouldn't mind adding Ramondre into there. Wide receivers: Neighbors, Jacoby, Diggs, Josh Downs, Alec Iomanner. See, I would rather Troy than Alec, but I don't want to use my number 1 waiver wire priority for Troy Franklin. Not, it could work out, but that's not what I want to do. So if I have the number 1 waiver wire priority, Ramondre, I'm going to say yes, it is worth it. Given you are thin at running back. Ertz might be lower this week if Jaden is out. Yes, obviously, if Jaden is out, that would impact the rankings. Yeah, Ertz is a good tight end. I was the only person in the fantasy football world who was telling you Ertz was going to have a good season last year. Carson Messiah. Is it Messiah or Massia? Who do I start at flex? Travis Etienne or I'm going to say probably Zay Flowers. Aren't they playing Detroit this week? So don't want too many of these flex questions. I haven't done flex. It's early on in the week. This is really a waiver wire video live session here. But given the question, I'm just going to go off the top of my head. I'm going to go Zay Flowers there. I have Zay Flowers as a top, my wide receiver 8 or 9 this week in my rankings. I have CMC and James Cook at running back, Nico Collins, Devontae Adams at wide receiver. Yeah, I have Zay Flowers ranked over Devontae Adams this week. Maybe over Nico, probably not. Zay Flowers. You're welcome, Tyler. George Play. Hey, I'm doing well, man. How are you doing, George? It is always nice to see you. I appreciate you very much. Pouring Henny. In a dynasty league, I traded Justin Fields and my next 2 second-round picks for Jaden Daniels pre-injury. Thoughts? I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. I mean, how often are you going to get a Jaden Daniels with a second round pick, right? Even with 2 second round picks, and Just Fields ain't Jaden Daniels. And Jaden Daniels is still young in his career. Should I trade RJ? So I don't even mind it post injury. It's fine. Sorry, I didn't realize waiver prioritized live. Oh no, pouring. Like waiver questions, trade questions. I'm live Thursday, maybe Saturday, Sunday morning for 4+ hours to answer start sit questions. So I just don't want to do start sit questions while I'm doing waiver wire stuff. That's all. Not that I'm going to sit there and ignore every start sit question. It's not so busy that I can't touch upon them, but I just, don't want to go crazy on them. Should I? And so if it's something where it's really questioning, like I might just kind of blow the question off and just say, come back, another day. Should I trade RJ Harvey for Henderson or if you can get Hampton for RJ Harvey, yes. Harvey for Henderson is a very sideways move, whichever one you feel. I guess I would probably say Henderson at this point. Non PPR. Oh, see, non PPR now I'm closer to RJ Harvey. Not he's also a receiving back, but I just think he has more of a chance of touchdowns than Henderson. Better offense, better defense. Get him into rushing situations. Hampton all the way. If you can get Hampton for Harvey, I don't think you can. Yeah, I don't think either of those are going to work. Harvey and Mason for Genty. Yes, Harvey and Mason for Genty. It might not be great, but yes, I would do that. I would take Genty over those two. Worth giving up Keenan Allen for AJ Brown? Yes, of course. AJ Brown all day. Joe, except if that is offered to you. Should I trade Jaylen Warren and Hollywood Brown for Tedero McMillan? Warren Brown for Ted? Yeah, sure. I'm down for that. Smells. It depends a little bit on what your running back room looks like, maybe, but not too much. I would accept that if I was getting Tedero McMillan for those two. Nitro, what is up, Nitro? How are you doing today? Nice to see you. As always, Smells. Should I trade Jaylen Warren, Hollywood Brown for Tedero McMillan? Hey, I'll get to your question. Calm down. Poor and Henny. Sorry, I didn't realize fire. Nitro, we're back to you. Do you play Dynasty at all? Unfortunately, I do not. But I can still have opinions on them. I'm getting better and better at it, but I just there are some facets, and I will just openly admit it if I don't feel comfortable answering a question or don't have the time to do a little bit more research on a question. But I have a couple of friends that ask me a lot of Dynasty questions. I'm getting a little bit more used to the value of picks relative to, players. And I definitely understand, the strategy of Dynasty, of, long-term value, of selling a team to build up for a future team and stuff like that. So debating how much to put on Tyler Algier tonight. Tyler Algier's just available. I mean, he could become a starting running back for a team, once he's done his... I don't know that... Did he get an extension? Did they lock him up for further? Because I feel like, is this the final year for Algier? A team just looking to get a good running back on a good team. Like, if JCM doesn't work out, the Washington Commanders would be a team like, hey, yeah, we'll just take him, overpay him a little bit on the free market, and he'll be our starting running back. We know we can rely on him. He's good. Who is this? He has not received an extension, and his final year with his rookie contract is this year. I don't think they're going to be able to put enough resources into paying him and Bijan Robinson. I doubt it. So I do like him in terms of, a potential upgrade in for the future. Free agent next year. Oh my God, you freaking answered my question in it. I read free agent, and then I just was thinking like he's a waiver wire free agent. Let's see, Nitro, new league. My league members will learn he was dropped for roster spots. Oh yeah. Samson went for 35 last week before Quinshon signed. So then 35 should get you Algier, right? I go 36 for Algier. I don't know how much you have to work with here, but it's hard to imagine someone's going to think more of Algier than Samson prior to Quinshon signing. Maybe play it safe, 41. Once again, I don't know exactly what you're working with. I don't want to lose out on him. 46? Algiers doesn't get like a whole lot better than that, right? He seems like a must get to me. Obviously, it might end up not being worth it, but it's so worth the shot. I want to get him. I'm going to say 46 just to be safe, and if I overpay, I overpay, whatever. Hopefully, the overpay doesn't matter next year. With that in mind, would you drop Stephon Diggs or for Franklin? Oh, in a Dynasty League? Yeah, sure. Sure, Henny. I'll drop Stephon Diggs for Troy Franklin in a Dynasty League. Brawl Bro, I trust you understand Dynasty. Appreciate you. Yeah, I try to listen to much more real football in terms of like podcasts and stuff that I listen to than fantasy football podcasting. That's actually flipped a little bit this year, not for any reason, but generally speaking, I do try to study the game more. And then, of course, in terms of draft picks and everything, I spend half the year looking at them. In terms of the young players in the league. Chiefs need running backs. They drafted one. They'll be okay. Yeah, that's just nuts. Why would you ever drop Algier? Especially in Dynasty. Why is Algier a thing? Frank, for Dynasty, partially because he's a free agent next year. He's also just good. Dynasty usually are very deep benches, like guys like, Woody Marks, Damian Pierce are going to still be on people's rosters. Because you don't know what might happen next. Like a guy like Damian Pierce, he has a promising rookie season, then he gets buried in Houston. But once he leaves Houston, he might get an opportunity somewhere with somebody that likes him, and he might pop off. And so you need to carry, you go pretty deep in Dynasty in terms of who you're holding on to. And a guy like Tyler Algier, and youth also matters. And so you got Tyler Algier on a team where they're not re-signing him. He's going to become a free agent. There's a very good chance that there's going to be a team that's just going to want a running back, need a running back, and not want to pay a whole lot at that position and not want to draft a first-round running back. So they take Tyler Algier, and that's going to be their guy, like Jordan Mason now, here. And so to be able to get them without having to trade any future draft picks for them or something like that is insane, and they should not be available in a Dynasty League unless maybe it's a really shallow Dynasty League and that team just absolutely has to make that move. But even then, they should probably be shopping them for a future draft pick of some sort to somebody before going ahead and dropping them. Yeah, 26 carries in 2 weeks for him, and this is him in this role this year. Bijan and Algier are in my redraft league. I'm in one of each. One redraft, one dynasty. Yeah. Okay, Hecky, sorry. Tony Pollard or Jordan Mason? I assume you're asking as a starter this week. I do have Pollard over Mason. I don't love it. I might break down and move Jordan Mason up my rankings, but I'm really afraid of that Vikings offensive line, and I don't have much faith in Carson Wentz to move the offense. So I just don't want to get too crazy high in Jordan Mason, even though, I love him this week. I do. I have a love tag. I love him this week. but I think there's enough to be concerned about that he's at the bottom of my must-start guys. Lower than Pollard in my must-start guys. So, I mean, far from a guarantee that Tony Pollard outscores Jordan Mason. So, go with your gut. I keep them in the same tier for a reason. Who should I start? Rincon, Zach Charbonnet, Tootin, Omarion, RJ Harvey. I think I've got Omarion at the top of that list. And I'm really low on Omarion, and I still have him ahead of the others. Definitely ahead of RJ Harvey. Still ahead of Bajal Tootin, and ahead of Zach Charbonnet. Yeah. I do have him in the same tier, but hopefully they just give the ball back to Omarion Hampton next week, and hopefully he's better. It is not the best matchup. I'm not expecting Omarion to have a great week. If I wanted to shoot for the moon, Zach Charbonnet, I think, is the pick. If you just can't get yourself to play Omarion Hampton, Zach Charbonnet is my number 2 there. You're very welcome, Rincon. Rincon, right? Sorry, in America we are so bad we don't use those accents too often. Would you trade Nico for Tetero or Javonte? Nope. The two of them, maybe, depending on what my roster looks like. Otherwise, I'm just sticking with Nico, man. It's not the end of the world. I am worried about Javonte going forward a little bit more. I mean, I don't, he's a regression candidate regardless-ish. Well, only a little bit. But they just lost Cooper Beebe, who's a really good run blocker. Their center, that could really, really hurt how good this run game has been so far. Javonte's not really a creator. So if that Dallas offensive line takes even a small step back, but especially if they take a big step back, he might just become completely touchdown reliant. Whereas right now, it looks like maybe, he could break a few here and there, and they can move the chains because they're getting enough yards when they run to just move the chains more consistently. Whereas if that running game starts not to work, it becomes a little bit of an inconsistent team, and then they have to pass more and all that good junk. So I do think we're at a crossroads for Javonte Williams, crossroads, which might not rear itself ugly head this week because they're going against Chicago, but I am a little bit concerned about him going forward with the loss of Cooper Beebe there, which might be like an 8-week type of thing. And even when he comes back, is he going to be a little gimped or something not as good as he was? So, yeah, I don't know if I read it incorrectly, but I understood it was Tetero and Javonte. Once again, I generally don't want to do that. Generally, I want the best player. I still think Nico's the best player. I don't think it's a terrible trade. I wouldn't do it myself. Free Horse, what's up, was offered Justin Jefferson, Hawkinson, and ETN for McConkey, Tyler Warren, and Jalen. I think I would rather McConkey, Tyler Warren, Jalen Warren here. Because Tyler Warren's going to offer you an advantage that you can't get elsewhere. McConkey, I'm not so afraid of, and I don't know how confident I am in Justin Jefferson. There's a reason I had CeeDee Lamb ranked ahead of him in the preseason rankings, and I had concerns about Justin Jefferson. And Jalen Warren, I think, isn't in like a whole lot worse of a, he and ETN, I would say season long, I think are pretty equal still. Free Horse, I don't think I would do it. You're obviously potentially making a mistake. Justin Jefferson, McConkey. I'm not, I don't think Hawkinson's going to be something this year, though. He'll have games, but I think I just don't think he'll be very good. Incredibly waiver wire replacement type of guy. So I don't think you're giving up anything, or I don't think you're getting anything in Hawkinson that you couldn't get off of a waiver wire. You could get better stuff off of a waiver wire probably right now, this week. But you don't need to because you got Tyler Warren. McConkey, Jalen Warren for Justin Jefferson, ETN. I don't necessarily want to make that trade, but if you want to kind of make this trade, that's what I would counter with. I have Kittle to replace, but they're probably not going to, maybe they'll accept that. Probably won't. Got Kittle. Oh. Frick. Why did you draft Tyler Warren and Kittle? I'm not too confident about the Vikings either. And now, gonna be Carson Wentz for a little while, and then he got the injury. I don't think I would do it. I would be looking for something else. McConkey, Tyler Warren for Nico Collins. I think I have more faith in Nico. Ugh. I think I'll just take, I'll keep Tyler Warren. Take these. He's good for another 3 weeks, 3 victories. Hopefully, he'll help you secure. Yeah, nah, I'm gonna say no. It's definitely a little bit different though than I was thinking because you got Kittle. But I think I would want to do a different trade. Augusto Kishishian. Quarterback, you got Mahomes. Running back, you got Kamara, JT, Javonte, nice. Wide receiver, Devontae Lamb, Kupp, Ridley, Myers, Keenan Allen. Little thin at running back here. Tight end, Bowers. Who should I go for and what should I give? That's a really vague question, man. I can't just come up with trades out of nowhere. I would think about trading Mahomes and Ridley for a team that's got Drake May and somebody else. Something like that to try to... You need to find the right situation. I would try to sell high on Mahomes. And right now, there are teams who might need quarterbacks. Depending on what you can get on the waiver wire, depending on what you might be able to flip Mahomes for, I would be willing to trade Mahomes for a lot of people in this trade. And so I'm trying to get a small upgrade at wide receiver, at quarterback, but what I'm ultimately trying to do is make them think that they're getting the better quarterback, or hope that they think that they're getting the better quarterback, and then upgrade a Ridley. Hope that they like Ridley, or maybe upgrade Myers. Maybe we sell high on Myers and Mahomes. You can maybe get something at wide receiver for that, and potentially actually upgrade your quarterback in the long term. So, in terms of quarterbacks, I would rather have than Mahomes rest in season. I think, I don't know about Jared Goff for sure, that you could actually get. But maybe Jared Goff, if that's the right situation, maybe it's just a sideways trade then or something. I really am making sure in that case that I'm for sure upgrading Myers if that's the situation that I'm doing. But Caleb Williams, he doesn't look great, but fantasy he's been good. Depending on what the person thinks, maybe you could get him. Drake May, Dak Prescott. I want Justin Herbert. Baker Mayfield, yeah, probably still. Jordan Love, though, is definitely somebody who you could probably trade Mahomes for Jordan Love. I would take Jordan Love over Mahomes, and they're going to say, I'm getting the better quarterback in Patrick Mahomes than Jordan Love. And then you flip Myers for a slight upgrade. Who is that? What kind of guys are we looking for? Jacoby Myers for... Oh, that's where it gets a little tough. I mean, would you want T. Higgins? Would you take the risk for T. Higgins and hope that things work out just fine for him? Terry McLaurin, could you do that? That you might be able to do if somebody were to have Jordan Love, Terry McLaurin. Look for something like that, okay? They want to give me Hampton. Who should I give? Jacoby Myers? You still got Keenan Allen. Got Ridley. I think there are better days. Cup might be okay. You got Lamb, and you got Devonta. You're giving up a wide receiver. You can give up a wide receiver. If you have to, Javonte Williams and Ridley. If he needs a running back, Javonte Williams, Ridley. If you could get away with just Myers, I would want to do that. There you go, Augusto. Pareco. Trade JSN and Pollard for Brian Thomas Jr. and Henderson. Technically, yes. I gotta go let my cat in. You're going to get BTJ. Yes, but I don't know that I want to do it. All right. Pouring Henny. Dynasty, would you drop Ollie Gordon for Algier as an HN owner? Thinking about it. Yeah, I still like Algier more than Ollie. Yeah, probably. W for still answering the vague question. Thank you. And then the answer was sitting down there for a little while. I didn't read it quick enough. Ben Rolla, thoughts on Christian Kirk and PPR? Stroud has looked bad. Christian Kirk might be able to help him by giving him a quicker target, though Christian Kirk's a little bit better in the vertical game. Hopefully that offensive line comes together. Jalen Knoll doesn't seem to be like a threat to replacing him once he's back long term. They kind of need him, so he might help. Generally speaking, I would like to hold on to him, keep him, and see what it looks like, I guess. I also have ETN, so I'd have 2 Jags starters, by the way. I mean, I don't think that this Jags offense is something to avoid. But like I said, so technically speaking, Brian Thomas Jr. Henderson over JSN Tony Pollard. Okay, so it's BTJ over JSN, but it's also Pollard over Henderson. But long term, is it Pollard over Henderson? Maybe not, and that's where it tips the scale. But at the same time, I have concerns about BTJ coming into the season, and so far, the exact concerns that I had about BTJ have reared their ugly head. And I had a lot of optimism for JSN, and so far, the concerns that I had for JSN have not reared their ugly head. And Pollard's a sure thing. Henderson's a question mark. But Tyjae Spears will come back at some point, and Pollard could definitely be worse than Henderson down the road, and BTJ could definitely be better than JSN. Oh my God. I would not initiate the trade if I got the offer. I think I would bite my lip and I don't know. Anybody have any advice for Pareco? What do you guys think? That's so freaking tough. Like I said, I think it's a technical yes. Click. I don't know that I could do it. I don't know that I could press the button. And, you would have 2 Jags starters then. 2 starters who, who knows. Maddox Young, AJ Brown, and Josh Jacobs for CeeDee Lamb. Depends your running back room. Depends the running back room. You're paying up to improve. I do think, regardless of what AJ Brown does rest of the season, I think that CeeDee's better than AJ Brown. But he's not Josh Jacobs better. So you better have the running backs. If you drafted Quinshon Judkins, you got Bijan and Ken Walker. Is that it? Because Ken Walker's not a thing. Ken Walker still got outsnapped by Charbonnet last week. So Ken Walker's far from a guarantee. If it's really just those 2, and you don't have JCM, Quinshon Judkins, something that I can help to guarantee and or play matchups with that RB2 spot to try to get the most out of it, I don't think I want to do it. And then you're getting really thin. Veek, what's up? You just ask. You know how you said hi to me. Just type it in. Type in the question. I'll get to you in a little bit. Probably heading out here soon. Was really only planning on being here for an hour. We're going on 2 hours. Pouring Henny. Thank you. I'm gonna do it. Fire. Miami's cooked besides HN. Good friggin' luck. I hope it works for you long term. For Bucky Irving, compared to Hampton, Bucky Irving. Instead of Hampton, those same trade. Yeah, I mean, I like Bucky Irving better than Hampton. So, yeah. But I'm not going to get... Okay, you could get rid of Kamara and Ridley for Bucky Irving. It was promising what Kamara did this last week. But Bucky still should be better. So you could do Kamara, Ridley for Bucky. You could even probably do Kamara, Myers, because you have Keenan, Lamb, and Devonta Cup there. But I would prefer Kamara, Ridley. If you could do that, that would be nice. I don't know that that'll quite get you Bucky there. It might be a little tough. I mean, I appreciate... Veek, I appreciate donations. They help. I'm not here doing this for free, hoping nobody gives me a donation. They're very much appreciated, but not necessary. If I force people to donate, I don't think I would have people ask me questions. And ultimately, I also like giving advice and trying to help out, and hopefully being correct on it. Is Caleb Johnson a drop at this point? Yes, Lucius. Unfortunately, I would say he probably is. If you can hear my cat, sorry, she's going crazy. The offer has been sitting there for me all day. Yeah, Pareko, I get it. It's an impossible offer. I can't believe they made the offer. It's just one of those that there's so many different ways to look at it. It's tough. I got Bijan and okay, we talked about that. Warren Henny having a good night. I do have Aaron Jones on my IR for later down the line. That's good, Maddox. I don't think it's a good trade. Ultimately, I don't think it's a good trade. Aaron Jones. I needed something with a little bit more upside than Aaron Jones and something with a little bit more for sureness than Ken Walker as my backups there to lose the trade in order to condense my team and make it a better starting lineup. So I would not do it. I think pretty highly of Josh Jacobs, and I think pretty highly of A.J. Brown. Now, if you think A.J. Brown's crap, if you think you're just giving A.J. Brown... I mean, if you really think that the trade is Josh Jacobs for CeeDee Lamb, and you have no faith in A.J. Brown, and you think he's going to be this wide receiver all season, which he's not going to be this wide receiver all season, then you could do it. You know, just like somebody else had a trade earlier where it's like they just have a different viewpoint on the players, and maybe they're going to be correct. Even though they made a trade that, a lot of us in chat thought they were losing, they felt like they're winning it because they have a strong opinion on A.J. Brown and Chase Brown. Two guys who've started off slowly or have, maybe aren't going to be exactly what we drafted them to be. I do have Aaron Jones in my eye. Okay, someone trying to give Tyreek and Breece Hall for JSN. Nah, I'll stick with JSM there, Gonzalez. Game Fred Gonzalez. Thank you very much for the question. Nice to see you around. Guys, don't forget to like the stream. That always helps. Trying to shut it down, though, so maybe don't like it. Just subscribe to the channel instead. Ben Rolla. Shout out for advising Pickens over Ridley last week. Got the win. Let's go, baby! Woo! Congratulations. You're very welcome. Glad it worked out. They don't always work out. But I thought last week, overall, there were a couple of misses, but overall, especially for the questions that were being asked Sunday morning, I gave good advice. Veek, my current situation is 12-man full PPR quarterback. Oh, by the way, Veek, just for future reference, if it's taking me a while to get to your question, I will answer questions that, if I will skip the line to answer a question if somebody pays me, of course. Of course, you get to skip the line for any kind of paid question. So my current situation is 12-man full PPR. Quarterback is Bo Nix. Your running backs are Bijan Robinson, Corey Krasnick, Nick Chubb, Benson. Nice. Little thin with 4 running backs, but should be able to get by there at RB2. And then your wide receivers, this should be better. This is a short bench, huh? JJ, Metcalf, Igbuka, Johnston. The tight end is Pitts. You don't have any bench? Like, these are your benches? That's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. In your, like, IR spot? Or on your bench? Okay. Godwin as well. I don't know that I want Godwin and Igbuka, and that was the one thing that I was thinking of moving. Do you need a better running back? I mean, I think JCM is going to be pretty good. This week it could be good too. I was thinking last week when he played Green Bay and I was down on him. I think Nick Chubb's also in a good matchup this week. Yeah, that'll happen. And you can see why with your roster, but you just did get an upgrade to JCM, one that's going to be season long. And Nick Chubb, you know, they talked about utilizing him more. He got a little bit more utilization. He still looks solid. And Benson, of course, has some upside, one way or another, and is usable. But he doesn't have much trade value in order to upgrade into something that's better than JCM or Nick Chubb. So what you ultimately, you're looking at trying to upgrade Nick Chubb, who I don't think has a lot of trade value just because I don't think people are very excited about that potential. For one reason or another, they're just not going to be extremely excited about it, especially in full PPR. So I want to sell high on Igbuka if I'm trying to do this. So Igbuka, Nick Chubb. What can Igbuka, Nick Chubb get you? You got to find the right team, of course. But if we're just thinking running backs, Nick Chubb as an upgrade to a team that's got too many, you know, like a Ken Walker, Zach Charbonnet. Like, it's hardly an upgrade. It might even not be an upgrade. So I don't want to do that, really, for either one of them. But, like, that might be what it would have to be. But Igbuka, you could probably do Igbuka, like, straight up for one of them right now. So, Kamara, Genti. Does it have to be 2 for 1? Maybe it doesn't, but then you're getting rid of your wide receiver. Okay, so Igbuka, Nick Chubb. Could that get you a Breece Hall, coming off of a bad week at least, right? Like, so, I mean, you really have to find the right roster. But what I'm looking for is maybe you could try shooting something out to the Chase Brown owner. I think you'd have to give those 2 to the Chase Brown owner. It'd have to be a 2 for 1, and then you go to waiver wire, get yourself a wide receiver. Not going to be able to get anybody up here. Even Derrick Henry. You know, that's just not going to work. But you might be able to get a Breece Hall if you want to take a risk on Ashton Genti, if you want to take a risk on Omarion Hampton. You know, you're taking a risk. You might be able to get one of them. I don't know that I want to take the risk on DeAndre Swift. I don't know that I want to take the risk on Tony Pollard. If you believe in Alvin Kamara, I think that's an okay one to try to take the risk on. I don't really want to buy into Javonte Williams over Nick Chubb necessarily for the cost of Igbuka. And then you're looking for like a wide receiver back, preferably that's better than or a high end like waiver wire type of replacement. So if they had like a Rashid Shaheed on their team, or Quentin Johnston would probably, depending on who you're trading for at running back, would probably tank the offer. So like a Khalil Shakir, just to get somebody safe there. A Cedric Tillman. Travis Hunter owners might be down on him if you want to just take a chance on that. Michael Pittman owners might not be as excited as they were a week ago. Get that. Maybe somebody wants to try to sell high on Jalen Waddle. Maybe you could get that if it's like Waddle, Kamara, Nick Chubb, Igbuka. You know, somebody might accept that if they're really high on Igbuka and jealous of him. I mean, Ibuka's getting ranked really high this week. So that's what I'm trying to look at. Yeah, that's probably what I'm trying to do. Otherwise, I'm sticking with it and thinking there might be brighter days ahead. I don't know about for JJ. Shucks. I mean, would you want to do JJ and Nick Chubb for a stud running back and a lesser wide receiver, and then hope that Ibuka holds up, hope that Johnston somehow holds up? You got McCaffrey, you got Metcalf, you got Godwin coming back at some point, and then you could get JJ, Nick Chubb, and you get a George Pickens and a stud running back. Maybe that's the move. Try to sell low on JJ McCarthy. So you're going to have to find the right roster. It's so hard to just make up trades without just like actually seeing the trade, just because to me, my number one step usually when I want to make a trade is I look for whatever position I want to fix. I look for the teams that are the weakest at that position, whether it means they need depth or whether it means that, the starter got injured recently, something like that. Where I might be able to take advantage of that situation. Or maybe I look for specific running backs that I might be able to buy low on. I think I might be able to see which roster they're on and see if that roster is also thin at running back. Figure they might be desperate. You got to kind of look for the situation, I think, with trades. That being said, I don't end up making a lot of trades. So, maybe there's something wrong with my process. But I feel like that's the right way to go. Then again, I see some trades that get accepted in here, and I could easily make trades if I had people just accepting some of the shit that goes on in other leagues. Game Fred Gonzalez. Roster right now, quarterbacks, Lamar, Daniel Jones. Running backs, Gibbs, Kamara, K9, Judkins. Nice. And, yeah, I don't think you need Daniel Jones with Lamar, but if it's a two quarterback, I suppose, okay. Ladd, JSN, Quentin Johnston, Pickens, Devonta, tight end, Brock Bowers, and Harold Fannin. I mean, realistically, I would say you don't need Harold Fannin on your roster, and I would want to hold on to a running back instead of Harold Fannin. But if you're just holding on to Harold Fannin because you don't want league mates to have him, okay, then maybe you could drop Daniel Jones. There's no situation you're going to start Daniel Jones over Lamar Jackson. Hey, thank you very much. Thank you. Last question. Do you think my situation is bad or just bad luck? I don't think it's bad. I think, Bo Nix has that really rough week one. I think he should be better. I don't know that you're going to... I was warning people not to spend what they were spending in terms of how highly you had to draft Bo Nix. So I don't think that you're going to get back the round value that you spent on Bo Nix, but he still should be able to get by for you at quarterback. Obviously, Bijan's fantastic. JCM's on the uprise. I think Nick Chubb's going to be the running back there. Benson has some value, so hopefully your running backs stay healthy. Hopefully JSM comes through. If he does, then you're definitely good. I don't know how much, JJ should have better weeks than what he's had so far on the season, generally speaking. I don't know how much better. I mean, what he got through the first 2 weeks just might kind of be it, unfortunately. That just might be the case. That's why I was drafting all those running backs ahead of him. Metcalf, he's going to be a little bit up and down. Ibuka, I don't know. Pitts should be fine for you for where you got him. Johnston, I don't know. Because of JJ McCarthy, Justin Jefferson. I think your situation is a little bit rough, and that's why maybe that's the better idea, is to try to stack that running back, Bijan, and somebody else, and improve JCM or Nick Chubb. Maybe do the JCM. I think JCM probably has more value than Nick Chubb. It depends on the exact trade, but JCM has a little bit more value. So if you could find the right team and the right situation to do it with, try to improve that running back, take a small step back at wide receiver, maybe even include Johnston or Ibuka. Maybe do a 3-player trade. See if you can't find something like that. Try to sell. Take a chance that Ibuka and Johnson are not going to be what they've been, because I don't think they will be. I'd say out of the two, Ibuka has a definite better chance of being like season-long better. and try to sell high on one of them, sell low on JJ McCarthy, sell, JCM might be much better sell high in a week from now, but Igbuka or Johnson might not be higher. So try to upgrade that running back. Take a step back from JJ. Try to get something consistent, preferably, but whatever. Take a step back and move Igbuka into like a George Pickens and what if somebody has George Pickens, Cortland Sutton, and at running back a stud? Make that trade, because I do think Justin. I don't know, man. I don't know about Justin Jefferson. It's a risk, obviously. But if it was like Cortland Sutton, George Pickens, which obviously is no guarantee, I don't think you have a championship winning team, which is what you want. And I think we need to try to upgrade one of those running backs while hopefully secretly actually improving our wide receiver situation season long. And hopefully they just don't realize it. Could you get a Derrick Henry after a down week? Derrick Henry for JJ, Igbuka, or Johnston. Hopefully Johnston, JCM, JJ for Derrick Henry. It's full PPR, so Derrick Henry more gettable there. George Pickens and Cortland Sutton, who they might be down on as well. That team might be looking to make a change too. Oh, that's the best I can come up with. Anything I should improve though on this roster here, Gonzalez? Yeah, I think I gave you my feedback there. I don't know that you really need Harold Fannin and or Daniel Jones there. I don't like holding both a second tight end and a second quarterback if it's one quarterback. I'm kind of new to fantasy and keeping the quarterback and tight end for buys. Not sure if that's a great idea or not. Generally speaking, probably not necessarily, especially for quarterback. They're really easy to get off the waiver wire. Taking a chance on a guy like Harold Fannin being something special is definitely generally worth it, but you have Brock Bowers, who's a guy who you're just going to play every single week, regardless of it, and if there's ever a situation where you might not be playing him, you probably should be anyways. So, you probably don't need to hold on to Fannin or Daniel Jones, because I'm not a full believer in Daniel Jones, especially when you have a guy like Lamar and Brock Bowers at those positions. Those are called onesie positions in fantasy football in terms of drafting and everything for a reason. So you just, when it comes to your bye week, you just drop the worst person that you can to pick up a tight end to use for that 1 week. But generally speaking, wide receivers are way more valuable. Running backs get injured at a high rate. They're way more valuable. You want to take chances on having those guys on the back end of your roster in case, and you even want to take a risk on a guy who has no value right now, a Blake Corum, over a Harold Fannin who definitely has value, because if Kyren Williams were to go down, Blake Corum's an absolute beast, and currently with your roster, because of Brock Bowers, Harold Fannin really doesn't actually have any value outside of being a backup tight end, but generally speaking, it's very rare for a tight end to be a dominant tight end and actually give you an advantage at the position. Harold Fannin probably not going to be that. That offense is not going to be scoring enough touchdowns, and there's just that ball is getting spread around too much, and they're probably going to be a little bit run heavy rest of the season with Quinshon Judkins, to where there's just Harold Fannin is not going to have the upside that very few tight ends ever have. Not only in a season, but just career log. I own Murray. Frizzle, what's up, Frizzle? How you doing today? I own Murray. Should I pick up Drake May or Daniel Jones to stash for backup? I think Drake May is worth having on a roster. So, and I don't think that Murray's an every week starter, and I would start Drake May over Murray this week, I believe. So yeah, if you have the ability to stash an extra quarterback on that roster, yeah. Let's see, I like Drake May 2 tiers ahead of Kyler Murray this week. Now, that doesn't mean Kyler Murray is going to do worse than Drake May. I don't think we have to be afraid of San Francisco necessarily for Kyler. But I like Drake May better than Kyler. Rest of season, because I just don't see Arizona utilizing Marvin Harrison Jr. in such a way that's going to lift that offense to being any better than it kind of was last year. Whereas Drake May, I think there's more upside potential there. Okay, Veek, Achan, and Terry. By the way, once again, Veek, thank you very much for the tip. The Canadian tip. Achan, Terry for Justin Jefferson, JCM. Yes, please. There we go. Now we're talking. Let's get Achan in there. Yeah, yes. That's the stuff, Veek. That's what could turn that roster around. It's going to take a little bit of luck, but currently I do think that roster lacks a little something. And Terry could be just, not too much worse than JJ, and Achan should be significantly better than JCM if he can stay healthy. Would you have to drop either Braylon Allen or Matthew Golden? I do not want to drop Matthew Golden. Braylon Allen is amongst a large group of running backs that are worth holding on to your roster, but you don't have to hold them. You can drop them. So Frizzo's, he is worth. Would have to drop. So I would drop Braylon Allen. I do not want to drop Matthew Golden. We didn't draft him to start these first few weeks. You shouldn't have to have needed to start in these first 2 weeks. You might have followed my week 1 rankings and started in week 1. Sorry if you did that in your flex spot. But I think Braylon Allen's worth dropping there. If you're 2-0, maybe you stick with Murray. I think Drake May is pretty worth having. I don't care about Daniel Jones. Not that he hasn't been great, and he might continue to be great. Probably not to the same extent that he has been. But, I don't think he's better than Murray rest of season, I wouldn't say. Quincy Jones, Bills or Eagles rest of season DST? Oh, I lean Eagles still. Yeah, I go Eagles rest of season DST. Any waiver running backs that are catching your eye? This is not a good week for waiver running backs. I went through earlier in the video. If Tyler Algier is available, I definitely think he's worth having on your roster. If, obviously if Quinshon Judkins is out there or something like that and he's available, Bayshal Tootin are available, grab those guys. I'm not concerned about getting Jeremy McNichols. I'm not concerned about getting Chris Rodriguez. For the most part, I'm probably not concerned about adding Woody Marks or Kenneth Gainwell. Tyjae Spears, especially if you have an IR spot, go check if he's out there. If you could put him in an IR spot, that's perfect. I'm not dying to get him. I don't think he's going to be great. I think, best case scenario, he's splitting 50-50 with Pollard in an offense that's run by a rookie that hasn't looked so good so far this year, and an offense that's best case scenario going to be average at its best. Kyle Monangai is another one, maybe a little bit more than Woody Marks-ish, maybe. That I'm willing to hold on to my roster. Once again, they're in that same group of guys as Braylon Allen. I would put Braylon Allen for sure ahead of Woody Marks. I feel like Monangai might have a little higher chance of actually just outright taking the starting job later on in the season. Probably not for a while. So, you might be able to hold off on putting Kyle Monangai on your team yet and just wait and see if in case Breece Hall gets injured for Braylon Allen. Talking about those kinds of things, Game Fred. But, yeah, generally speaking, Blake Corum, if he's out there, he's a good one to have. He's one that's really worth holding like Tyler Algier is, because their starters go down. It's gold. It's gold. Goff or Love this week? This is going to be the last one here unless you get a question real quick, anybody. Jim Lord Israel? Jim Lord Israel? How's it going, man? Goff or Love? I think I have Goff insanely high this week. Yeah, I know I do. I'll show you. I have Goff ranked 4th. I love Love, but I have Love ranked 12th this week. Cleveland's been pretty tough. I'm going to go with Goff. I mean, the floor is probably higher for Goff this week. I know implied point total doesn't necessarily say so, but it also says that Green Bay probably runs the ball a lot. So, once again, if Jordan Love doesn't happen to throw for touchdowns, the yardage total is probably not going to be very high. So the floor is low for Jordan Love this week, more so than many others. And Jared Goff's floor shouldn't be low this week, and his ceiling is insanely high in one of the top 2 expected, highest scoring games this week. So you're very welcome, my man. Have a good one. I hope that it works out for you. You never know how things will go. But that is going to be it, guys. Thank you, everybody. This was a very successful waiver wire week. Went longer than expected. 2.5 hours. There we go, baby. And here we go. We're ending it. Peace out. If you are mid question, I end the stream. I'll keep the chat open. I can still answer in chat after the stream. And thank you again, Veek. And like, comment, subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. Peace out.